everybody. So happy Wednesday. What I've been doing past several months, I've been documenting all the sabotage on my transcripts on YouTube. But what I realized just the other day was that a lot of the stuff to do with my degree from HBU was has been sabotaged or deleted. So what I think was, and as I've said on the other live stream, friends from the Apologetics Journal stole all my work and built an AI model. And I think it must have had at least two different Christian content agencies that they were using that model for. And now they're trying to hide that, cover up that theft. And so in order to do that, they have to basically wipe out me, right? Including my degree. One of the things that's been hit a lot is anything to do when I mention Nabeel Qureshi, every single transcript, every single instance of his name is deleted. So I took a special topic class from him, and I thought it was February, because it seemed like it was 1 weekend special topic, a week with William Lane Craig, and then 1 weekend special topic. But the date on my photos from that is January 2017. So it may have taken one from him and then two right away. So anyway, but before I get started on that, I just have to say I'm at St. Edward's Church on River Road, and I'm in their Founders Garden. You can see the thing in the back. Can you? Anyway, so St. Edward's is right next to Smoka Place, and I'm not Catholic, but I have come here a couple times. Once was after. This is what they've been doing. They've been, wherever I go, they get someone to do one of their lame messages that they've built off that model. At Salem Alliance, they had this one service on Ezra that was so horrific. It was so horrific. I couldn't even go back the next week because it was so bad. So anyway, I came to St. Edward's that week. I also came for their Stations of the Cross. I've never done that. I mean, we've done like at Second Baptist in Kingwood, they do the Stations of the Cross, and I've just come a few times, but I just have to tell a story. So, I've been at Second Baptist for, it would have been, I think a total of, was from 2000, it's from December of 2007 up until actually just withdraw my membership in August of 2024. But anyway, I'm sitting in the back in the Catholic Church. I have to say that if you're like interested in like attending a Catholic church, St. Edward's is like very like, I don't know anything about Catholicism friendly, because they explain like how things work and what to do in the beginning. And they have like this little card that says, some of the things that they do. And so anyway, I was sitting in the back and they were going through one of the readings. And so Baptists do not have liturgy. Okay. And Second Baptist is actually a little bit more liturgical than a lot of Baptist churches, but the only time they say anything in unison is when they do the Nicene Creed, when they take communion once a month. But they don't know how to do it in unison. They don't know how to do responsive readings. So when I was teaching Sunday school and we would be like reading verses, they don't know how to do things in unison either, because they don't say the Pledge of Allegiance in schools anymore, right? And so one time I told them, I said, we don't do responsive readings here, but there's a lot of churches that do, and it's a big part of the service. And so if you go in and you don't know how to do a responsive reading, they're going to think you're a bunch of little heathens that have never been to church. So anyway, it's always, whenever there's something in unison at Second Baptist, it's a little bit of a challenge. So I was here at St. Edward's and we were doing some sort of reading. I can't remember what it was. And I was sitting behind this family, and the guy must have been new to Catholicism because he really didn't know how to do it responsive reading either. And then afterwards, when you go up, so I don't take communion because I'm not Catholic, but I do go up for a blessing. And I walked around, I saw they have this baptismal, not just like a holy water station, but like a full-on immersion baptismal. And I was like, oh my gosh, this kind of feels like home. So anyway, I do have to say that I haven't been to a lot of things at St. Edward's, but they do remind me of my Second Baptist people in Kingwood. So anyway, like I said, people are trying to steal my identity, steal my life, steal all my work. And so since a lot of things have been deleted, like my graduation picture from Houston Baptist University, it's deleted from my profile. My transcript was deleted off my hard drive. So I'm assuming, just based on everything else that's happened, they probably by the way, they also faked my medical records from when I went to Meridian Park Hospital in Tualatin. And just FYI, no one's got the update. I have a recording of when I was in the doctor's office that proves that both. So I did have a physical copy of my medical records. They're stolen out of my backpack. And then I mentioned it to Jacqueline, and then suddenly they appear back in my backpack. The ones that appeared were faked. Also, I can tell that they probably faked my eyeglass prescription because I have a physical copy of that. So I'm guessing that they either faked or deleted my records okay, I went through it as Houston Baptist University. It's now known as Houston Christian University. It's on Fondren in Houston. So anyway, that's a whole nother story. But I'm going to go through the classes that I took because I'm pretty positive that some of the things that are very identifiable to me that Annie Nardoni is trying to take credit for. So anyway, so they can say, oh, no, it's our work. It's not the person that we stole it from. So anyway, I started the program in fall of 2015. The first semester, and this was the last semester that they did 16 weeks. After that, they switched it to quarters at 8-week quarters. The first semester I was there, I took medieval philosophy and culture with Dr. Holly Ordway. And in that class, I wrote Gremlins. I didn't just read this, but I'm mentioning this for a specific reason. So I wrote in that class Gremlins in the Second Way. And that was one that Holly Ordway said that is very good. And if she says that to you, it is very, very good because she's tough. But that essay was later published in the science fiction issue of An Unexpected Journal in the summer of 2020. The other thing that I did in that class, and this was the last assignment, you had to do some creative work, whatever it was. There's a painting. If you look in my book review videos, anything that has the bookshelf background, there's a painting on the wall. And that was a painting that I did for that program, and it represents purgatory. And we did Dante's Divine Comedy, and that was my depiction of purgatory. And that I also took film and visual arts with Dr. Evan Getz. Zach Shamal was in that class with me, and in that class I wrote. It was the Artur essay. It was our final one. It was poetry on screen. It works on Shauna Arbach. That, I'm pretty positive, was stolen. Pretty sure that stealing student work is not that uncommon based on what I've been seeing. That, when we publish it in An Unexpected Journal in fall of 2018 on Courage, Strength, and Hope, I originally submitted it as that. Annie Nardoni and Jason Smith said, oh yeah, I'll leave all the context. And then when it got to copy editing, Annie Crawford said, well, this doesn't really, fit the theme or all this other stuff. So I basically rewrote it and then brought in Till We Have Bases. And that essay is The Making of the Journal, which was one of the first things I realized it had been heavily sabotaged. I didn't know everything had been stolen, but I was pretty sure that one had been, because it had been massively, massively sabotaged, including on the website that Grant Broadhurst had control over on An Unexpected Journal. They basically redesigned it to essentially sabotage it and change things on that essay itself. Okay. The other things that I wrote, and so there's actually 3 essays that I wrote. Okay, so the Artur essay was really the only what I would consider full essay. The other ones were really like short reflections. The other was Lava, A Story of Love and Hope, which is basically one of the most read pieces from the time we launched. It was published in September 2018 on that Courage, Strength, and Hope issue. I also wrote Hope, Life, and the Fountain of Trevi. So all 3 of those were published in An Unexpected Journal. I took a class from William Lane Craig on his book, On Guard. This I mentioned in my review on The Dark Tower by C.S. Lewis. So, spring 2016, I took research and writing with Holly Ordway. Or no, didn't take it with her. Took it online with Dr. Evans. And this is where we used to read The Abolition of Man. And there were other people in the class, but really the only person that stuck it out was Katarina Scott. This is when everything went down with the hiring of Elizabeth Fagan as superintendent of the Humble ISD School Board. So that was the second block in spring 2016. First term was World Religions with Stephen Tsoukalos. That was the only class he taught that I'm aware of at HBU. And I have to say, he's literally like the best online instructor I have. I think the way he structured his classes were absolutely amazing. And the way he made it really personal and interacted with people, he's just amazing. Now, he wrote a book called, I can't remember what it was, and it didn't come up. It's like that's been obscured too, like Jesus in the Age of Cults or something. I can't remember, but it's how different religions see Jesus. And so that's a really good book, but I couldn't find it when I was looking. In that class were, so Sophie Cherry, Seth Meyers, and Ryan Grube were on that class. And that was when Ryan started the first, it was called the HBU Secret Society. There's like this little Facebook group. And we started it because we were trying to figure out what Dr. Tsoukalos wanted. We were doing what he said he wanted in the syllabus, but he marked us down. This is what he wanted. We had to do these responses every week, and they had to be between 175 and I think it was 225 words. That was literally the hardest thing, one of the hardest things I've ever done. I would like write a whole big long thing and then pare it down, and it had to be on one page. And he wanted, I think it said two, but anyway, what we realized is he wanted more footnotes. And that is where I learned the art of footnotes in Stephen Tsoukalos' class. So we started, it's kind of a competition on like who could get the most footnotes in that 225 words. Anyway, I also took a class with William Lane Craig on Molinism. That was a special topic I took with him. And I took Latin on campus with Evan Getz. Fall 2016, I took Philosophy of Religion from Tyler McNabb. Cried every week in that. He did not like my essay on the problem of evil. But at the time, he was Reformed. Now he's Catholic. He might like it better now. I also took Apologetic Communications with Mary Jo Sharp. And one of the things we had to do an assignment with, we had to do an interview with somebody who wasn't a Christian, who didn't believe. And I used to have a recording. Who knows what they've deleted at this point? I don't know. I did a discussion with my friend Leslie Witkoff, who's Jewish, about what she believed about faith and things. The big thing we did in that was we had to pick our favorite apologetic argument. And this is like, I'm still in my first year, and I had never really done anything in apologetics before that, so I didn't really have a favorite argument. But I had been around a lot of people who said Christmas is pagan. And I believe Jesus was actually born on December 25th. And so my argument that at my presentation that I did was, should Christians celebrate Christmas? That is actually on my YouTube channel and on my website. It's kind of dark. Obviously, I missed that part in the reading that talked about lighting, but also it was raining, and I had to get it turned in. So that's that. I took a class from William Lane Craig, the special topic class on the resurrection that term. Spring 2017. This is also the May when, with all the sketchy stuff that went down with the Humble ISD School Board. So the first 8-week term, I took Scripture and Apologetics with Mike Licona, and this is the term that I took 3 special topic classes. I took that special topic class with Nabil Qureshi. I took the Atonement with William Lane Craig, and I also took Evangelism with Lee Strobel. Okay, so that was spring. I also took Advanced Research and Writing on this second term with Holly Ordway, and I was working on an unfinished thesis. So keep in mind, this is like spring, May, all the craziness is going down with the Humble School Board election. So all this craziness. But I was working on a thesis for the dating of Jesus's birth. So the semester before that, I did my presentation in Apologetic Communications on Should Christians Celebrate Christmas? And then in the spring, I was working on a thesis on the dating of Jesus's birth. And this is one of the things that's been sabotaged. I mean, not just stolen, but massively sabotaged. I have everything that I ever wrote for the apologetics program in one single Scrivener project. That has been hacked multiple times. At times I can't even open it. And this particular class was so corrupted that I couldn't even export that portion in order to get, this is the thing. I have exported every single bit of this, and I submitted it online to Crime Stoppers and the U.S. Marshals. Like this, because I know that they're like lying about stuff. I had to do this, copy and paste it by hand, because there were things that just would not export. So this particular thing, they switched around, because I also included, like, when I did Blackboard discussions, because Blackboard would crash all the time, so I would write it first in Scrivener and then paste it in there. And I also copied the feedback for what I was working on into the Scrivener project. I have some of it, the feedback for other people, things from my thesis. Some of them are missing, some of them are moved and changed, and one of them that was left, because they changed it so that I was saying that my thesis was on, like, the dating of the Gospels, or like which came first or whatever. And that's not what I did. And they also changed my comment to say that my advisor on this was a Dr. Jones. It wasn't. It was Tim Brookins at HBU. And we had this whole conversation because when I was starting to actually research the primary sources, and I would be like, why do pastors say all this stuff about Christmas? Because it's like, nothing I was coming across was like even new research or new discoveries. It was like over 100 years they've known like certain things that, as far as like the year he was born, things like that. And Dr. Brookings said, this is a reply. I never finished it, but Dr. Brookings said it's because they do sermons based on historical information, right? But they don't actually truly know the history or the actual field of classicism. He said, I'm a classicist. So anyway, they stole that. And Virginia Dale Lastra is another person that I know has lied to help her friends steal my work. So here's the thing, Virginia, the one who did the illustrations of An Unexpected Journal. You may think it's just a little lie, not a big deal. You're helping them steal my life. You're also helping them in their effort to be part of conspiracy to murder. That's what it is. So go cry all you want. I don't care. I'm past tears. Yeah. Whatever. Like I said, I'm naming names. I don't care. I'm way, way, way beyond caring. Anyway, she's in Chile. Anyway, so at least you have a little bit of a coverage, right? Fall 2017. This is my last semester at HBU. I took systematic theology on campus with Randy Hatchett. Everybody else most people for the apologetics program took mere theology. The only time it was online was in like the summer term. Didn't really work for me, because of the kids. It's just, starting in the like end of May, busiest time of the year. So I took systematic theology on campus with Randy Hatchett. I wrote a paper on Angel of the Presence, and I think that was that one. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was. I'm sure that's been stolen too. And so Randy Hatchett was the editor of the 4th edition of Church History for Plain Language. In the spring of 2020, I had started in the Biblical Languages program, and I was taking a church history class. And there are two videos that they deleted the transcripts entirely, and that was Martin Luther and the Reformation, and also on America and City on a Hill. That was the other one. Dr. Hatchett is also the one who was a co-author of Engaging Theology with Ben Blackwell, and I did an interview with them. I think it was in January 2022. I have to go back and look. It's basically a textbook, but they're both amazing. And then the last class that I took in the apologetics program, okay, not quite the last class. So I took Abstract Objects in the Aseity of God with William Lane Craig. That was a special topic class with that one that I took. And Ben Young actually came in one day. We just kind of sit in one day. So those special topic classes, it was every day from like 3 to 5 or something like that. And he came in and sat in one day. So anyway, and then the last class I took was Literature and Apologetics with Dr. Michael Ward. That's where we read Lord of the Rings, and I think we read the Ransom. I have to go back and look. We read the Ransom trilogy too. But in that class, I wrote Melchizedek Bombadil and the Numinous in the Lord of the Rings, and that was published in the Worlds of Tolkien issue for an Unexpected Journal. So anyway, I graduated on December 15th, 2017, and that was like a couple days after the whole net neutrality thing went down. And afterwards, we went to the Hobbit Cafe. We're sitting outside. I'm talking to Charlotte, and my daughter Avery is sitting next to Carice Gillen's brother and a couple of the other professors, and they were talking about it. And it was Jerry Walls. He was there, and then I can't remember the other guy's name, but anyway. So they were sitting with Carice's brother, who's on the city council for Shenandoah, and he's like, "Oh, it's not really going to be that bad." They had been doing like some pilot project for it. So anyway, this is related. Later I went and looked at the minutes for that city council meeting. They changed them all to audio, so there's not even written minutes. That is a shady thing, because they do that so it's not as easy to find the information. So I graduated with Ryan Grube, William Trice Battle, Carice Gillen, and then me. There was a picture of me on my Facebook profile that's been deleted. There was also another guy, I can't remember his name, that graduated but wasn't there. So anyway, says anything else, it's been fabricated. Only people that were affiliated with the journal, that were later affiliated with the journal, that were at that Nabil Qureshi class were Ryan Grube and Seth Meyers. Obviously, there were other people there. It wasn't Annie Nardoni, whoever else would claim that experience. No. The only person that I saw that was semi-related to, well, she was related because she helped with editing and she also submitted, that came to the special topic classes with William Lane Craig was Sheila Craigsheld. That's it. She was on the On Guard. I think she came to another one, but that's it. The other ones, never saw them there. Okay. So as far as HBU as a whole, yeah. So I've realized that a lot of the things that have happened have been politically motivated, as in All the President's Men, same sort of strategies. The journal was sabotaged because I published, part of it, I think I got targeted because I was talking out, giving the Humble ISD school board grief, and I would cite all my sources, which drives them crazy because they like to gaslight and lie. I published that first essay in an Unexpected Journal, From the Green Book to the River, on Lewis relativism and constructivism. And I used in the footnotes things about Humble ISD and Elizabeth Fagan's background. So an Unexpected Journal was targeted, right? I also think that HBU as a whole, and particularly that cultural apologetics program, was targeted because as a program, it was designed to develop both reason and imagination, and people that have a stronger faith and can reason are more resistant to manipulation, which political manipulators don't like. So I think that it was targeted because Mormons are like the manipulator's worst nightmare. And Mary Beth and David Baggett were sent in to basically tank it, because that's what's happened. I mean, it was it was unbelievable. There was Holly Ordway had created this amazing community among the students and alumni. When Mary Beth Baggett took over, it just totally went down the tubes. We had students we had this other group for students and people who had graduated. We had people coming in and they would say, I can't get a hold of anybody. They're basically no connection, no nothing. She said it feels really lonely. We had offered, Zach offered to, if they gave us a list of incoming students, that we would reach out to them and connect with them. Nothing. There were no connections other than they put a bunch of their sock puppet accounts into the student and alumni group and were pimping out some of their crappy books. Anyway, yeah. We had I mean, this is the thing. You could see the decline in the quality of the writing, and we specifically could see it because, with the journal, we would receive some things, and when we encourage people to submit. So it's Jesse Childress. He submitted an essay on the Saints and Sanctuary issue, and it was about abuse. I actually had a segment with him and Charlotte on the live stream launch party, but I also included both of them in that Restoring Hope conference. The way it turned out, it was amazing. But our editors on An Unexpected Journal had to work with him a lot to get it to that point because, and this came straight from his thesis. Charlotte told me didn't have citations, nothing. I was like, oh my gosh. Same thing with an amazing essay. Turned out to be an amazing essay in An Unexpected Journal in the Dragons issue written by Elizabeth Martin. Same thing. Megan said, I can't forgetting her name, but anyway, she was one of the editors. She said, yeah, we had to work a lot on it. But this is the thing. It's not they can't write. They can, but they need feedback. They weren't getting it under the program with Mary Beth Baggett and David Baggett. Riz Christini said, I like David Baggett, but he is really bad at online education because they didn't care. Because I think they were paid. I think they were, this is my opinion based on what I've seen, because I don't see any other reason for tanking an excellent program and tanking it under your watch. You got to be getting paid for it. So anyway, and then the whole rebrand. What was that? They literally are good at nothing other than breaking brands. Because I know there had to been whatever the agency was that was responsible for that. It was deliberate sabotage. The domain name for HBU used to be hbu.edu. So they switched from Houston Baptist University to Houston Christian University. Christian, like it's some other janky, unaccredited school. Completely break off the history of Houston Baptist University as a university, right? Completely break that off. All the credibility, all the history, wipe it away. And then what logically would be a domain name if you're switching from a name? If it goes from hbu.edu, you would assume it's going to be hcu.edu. Do you know what hcu.edu goes to? Heritage Christian University. Haven't looked it up. My guess it's some unaccredited college. Yeah. It was deliberate sabotage. Deliberate sabotage. So anyway, I don't have any authority. I have over HBU's decisions, but I have a lot of opinions, and I'll be sure to share them. The other thing, so I was talking about on my last live stream, I was saying that I could tell that the Kaiser Times, where I've been interning, basically working for free for the past couple months, that I could tell had been sabotage. I know that for a fact. I know that it is. So I know that my communications, that if I call out, that it's not going to be going anywhere, that they're blocking those. I've had people call me impersonating people that I know. But I think the same thing is happening to Les Zates. Like I said, he is a very big deal in journalism in Oregon, and he's done a lot of really big investigations, including the corruption of certain Republican politicians. So yesterday, this happened a couple times. So if people call in to the Kaiser Times or you're submitting a story or whatever, if I'm answering the phone, I'll forward it to the reporters or Les, the publisher, by email. What I've noticed is sometimes those calls, like we're checking the voicemails, they're delayed. That happened when I checked it yesterday. There was a call that came in on I think it was a Tuesday night, and it was still there, it was unread and or hadn't been listened to. I had checked the voicemail, so calls have been delayed. But yesterday I picked up a call from one last week. It was a lady that was saying, you have incorrect information about a story. It was like a city council member at the city of Kaiser. And she's like, she was actually arrested. And you said the police took information that she's like, they didn't take my information. And she's like, and they said I was 30. I'm not 30. She's like, I'm assuming that this is because, they're with the police department and they're connected with the city council. Anyway, so I had just Les's number from an email that he had sent. So I called the number. He answered and he said, okay. He's like, well, I'm not sure. I'll check it out. And I gave him her information. And then, because I was thinking it was a cover story from last week, it was about some legislation that about to prevent online harassment. I thought it was that. But then she was saying it was like a 30-year-old woman. I'm thinking, what is this? So I Googled it. And what came up, and I knew I had read it, in the proofing, and I couldn't remember what it was. So I Googled it. I think it was from March 23rd. It was the police blotter that had that report. So I called Les back and said, hey, this is what I found. And he's like, oh, yeah, I think I remember that. That wasn't Les. He wouldn't have been doing anything with the police blotter. So I tried to call him. That was blocked. Who knows if he's getting my emails, but anyway, yeah. So other thing that I've discovered since I've been working there is that shady attorneys launder money through fake legals. So if any of you happen to watch this that are in Kaiser and get a copy of the Kaiser Times, you can just do a little exercise and see what you find. So every legal notice that's in the paper is supposed to be uploaded to the Oregon Newspapers Association database. You can Google that, come up with it. If I put this on my website, I'll put the link to it. So a text file is supposed to be up of every legal notice that's published is supposed to be uploaded to that database. So anybody in the state of Oregon or anybody anywhere could research theoretically any legal notice that's been published in the state of Oregon. Now, I've looked at some things, and I'm pretty sure that some of the things either were never submitted or have been deleted because I'm looking up notices that should have gone out that hadn't related to certain things that aren't in that database. So just go through like in a week and look at the notices and see if you can find them in that database. And then if you want to do another little interesting exercise, you can go and take that same information if you want to take the trip. Go down to the Marion County Courthouse, the one right across the street from the Downtown Transit Center, and go into the records room. They have a row of computers, and then do a search for that same information in the court database and see what comes up. So what I did last week, I researched that. I pulled up one that had been in, I can't remember if it came up in the Newspaper Association database, that had been printed in the Kaiser Times. And I went and looked down in the courthouse for that same information. Two completely different things. The affidavit that was submitted and then what had been published in the paper were completely different. So one of the things that I'm pretty sure that was not submitted on the Newspaper Association was the City of Kaiser budget. So that was last week. There's another one that is coming out in this next paper that is on the rural fire department budget. Even looking at it, you can hardly see it. The font that's printed with the actual line items and numbers is very hard to read. So anyway, shady stuff all over. Have to be alert, right? But that's it. And I'm going to go to the Kaiser Times this afternoon, or I'm going to be there from 10 to 2. And I'm going to continue being me, and everybody else is going to continue not being me.